All right, everybody, welcome to the Leadership Mastermind podcast. I am your host, Mitch Peak, and this is my co-host, Laura Brandeo. How are you doing today, Laura?
I am doing wonderful, Mitch, and boy, am I excited about our guest today. Let's jump right in and introduce you all to Toronto native Jas Takhar. He has been in sales and service industry for over 25 years, and soon after deciding to try his hand in real estate, he co-founded the REC in the course of 15 years and has successfully propelled his team to the first place position in Canada under Royal LePage in 2019. Jas's area of expertise is in helping investors build out their real estate portfolios, and wanting to share his knowledge and experience with the masses, he wrote a book titled Real Estate Intelligence, which teaches others how to buy or sell real estate on their own. He now hosts one of the top business podcasts in the country, the REC Experience. Here he interviews guests who share their success stories on real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and leadership. He also hosts a daily Instagram show called Nightcap with Jas, where he answers his followers' most frequently asked questions and hopes to provide inspiring content and aid others in removing the friction from their life. Well, Jas, we are thrilled to have you here. And on the Leadership Mastermind podcast, we want to provide our audience with insights and perspectives from our industry experts so they can learn, grow, and be inspired to be a leader to your clients and your teams. Okay, Mitch, let's jump right in and hear from Jas.
All right. Hello, Jas. How are you, man?
I'm amazing. Laura, can I just keep you in my pocket every morning and you can read that? Like, you're so good for my ego. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys so much for
easy. You make it easy to build you up.
You did a fantastic job. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, listening to that, now I know why we chose you to be on the show. you kind of just exemplify everything that we're trying to do here. So,
well, look, to that point for a sec, Mitch. I mean, just congratulations to both of you guys, right? Like, I truly mean that, and kudos, because I know as a fellow content creator / podcaster, how tough it is to come up with ideas and get guests and do all the booking and then actually put out the recording, put yourself out there. I know how tough that is, and we need more positivity, especially at the time of this recording and in general, and you guys are doing your part. And so I hope, and I know I'm speaking on everyone who's watching and listening right now, and when we say thank you for just being yourselves and doing what you guys do.
Well, thank you very much. And I will tell you, we reached two milestones. We reached that milestone of recording our 10th episode last week, which they say, like 25% of the people actually get that far, that podcast.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. And I just shared with Laura last night that we reached 400 downloads on our first 10 episodes. So, we're excited about the progress.
Look, I mean, when I started a couple of years ago, myself and my co-host Laura Stewart, to be exact,
look at that. It must be magic in that name.
I just try to surround myself with Lauras or something. I don't know what it is. I actually changed the name of my podcast, and you did mention it in the intro, Laura. It was formerly the REC Experience.
Okay.
It's now a lot easier. We just call it the Jas Takhar podcast.
There you go.
This way I can go a little bit wider in terms of the topics. But when we started, we were just hoping that 2, 4, 5 people listened. For you guys to get to 400 that quickly, like, imagine that, 400 people. With all the amount of content that somebody can dive into, like through Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and the millions upon millions of podcasts that are out there, 400 people still took the time to download yours, and that's just an amazing feeling. So congrats once again.
Awesome. I appreciate it very much. So let's dive in, and we have one major question we like to ask all our guests to get the thing started, and that is, as a leader, what are your top 3 key pillars to leadership?
I think, I mean, for me anyways, it starts with the right mindset. And so once I decided, and we could definitely get into my backstory at any point, but when I got started in the role of leading a team, for me, it was always about developing other leaders. So I'm a big believer that, like, my macro thought process and thesis on leadership is actually developing leaders. And how I do that is really by the next two pillars. Is number one is making sure that I'm consistently asking if I can help, and then actually helping. So it's not just rhetoric that I'm putting out there with my team saying, hey, can I help you, and not really help them, or reprimand them for not being able to do something. So in a day, and I think if you were to survey anybody that works with me, they would say, yeah, I mean, what you hear the most is Jas bopping around the rooms here. I don't have a computer, and one of the reasons is because then I'm not tied to anything. And so I bop around our 3 offices that we have here in the back, and ask, how can I help? And then I truly try to help. And sometimes it might be a technical question, and that's not my expertise, but I'm going to find someone that's going to be able to help one of my team members. And then the third pillar is consistently checking up on Andre, one of my videographers, who's been with me now for, I think, coming up to 6 months. But look, I know that the Andre that joined me 6 months ago is different than the one that's in front of me right now. But I also know that the one 6 months from now is going to be different. And so I'm consistently checking up on him to see, is he happy, not only with me, but like in the role that he's doing? Because look, I mean, around here, I think your viewers and your listeners are going to get a real quick dose of Jas's energy, that I'm changing a lot of stuff on a daily basis. Now, for somebody that's around me, they're learning a lot about, like, my videographer. I laugh with them. If they don't want to invest into real estate within a year's time, then I'm not doing a good job, because 60% of my content is about how to invest in real estate. Now, his life might change, and so if a leader's not checking up consistently, like I'm talking about if you can't, like, try to do it on a daily basis. If you can't, like, no more than a weekly basis. Hey, Andre, what do you need, man? Like, what's going on in your life? What's happening? How's the travel? Especially with COVID now and the lockdown and the pandemic and all that. Like, how is it that you're working from home? Because I'm on my guys come in once a week, and then the other batch of people come in. So they're going back and forth in that sense. How do you feel when you're at home, man? Like, what's happening? Is there a lot of distractions? I understand if you need to take a couple of days off. Don't feel like you're going to get in trouble for it. So I would say, to wrap that up in a nice little bow, it would be, have the right mindset, consistently ask how you can help, and then make sure you help. And then number 3, just check up if you're doing a good job.
Yeah, and that's great, Jas. And, a lot of that ties into servant leadership. That's what I'm hearing from you. I'm hearing from you that, number 1, invest in your people to make them leaders, because we know that's the greatest gift we can give to someone, is to actually develop them to be their best self. So that's a lot of what I'm hearing there, right?
100%, Laura. I mean, my Laura right now, in my VP of sales, who's also the co-host, she's right now, as I'm recording this podcast, is on 6 interviews. She's interviewing 6 people back to back for my new executive assistant.
Okay.
Cool story. My current executive assistant is now becoming like a salesperson. He's actually becoming a real estate agent. He got his license. He's moving on up. He wants to do something different. And so it's so neat that Laura is making the decision on who's going to be my executive assistant right now. She's leading this whole process. She led with the rest of our team. Not only does it feel amazing, but I'm also able to scale. I'm able to sit with Mitch and Laura right now, and not in interviews, right? Like, it's just, like, you can scale so much more when you're developing other leaders. Now, that's not easy. I hope nobody hears that being a servant leader, like, I love that word, and I don't hear it often enough. But so I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I truly believe I'm working for these guys and gals around me, right? Like, I probably I'm the guy who orders all the food. and then
Right.
kind of cleans it up afterwards. And you would think, well, Jas, you're the one who's running the organization. Why isn't there someone else to clean up? Because I don't need anybody to just clean up plates and stuff. I can serve the food and I can clean it up, because in between we're having a lot of fun. But while the setup and the cleanup's happening, my team is back at work. They're grinding away. So I love, as I mentioned, what you said about being a servant leader.
So let's tackle something here that was brought up in your bio. So, talking about being a servant and the fact that, this always intrigued me. So you sell real estate, but you also wrote a book to teach people how to sell real estate without you. So explain that to me. It's like being an auto mechanic and saying, hey, here's what I do for a living in writing if you want to do it yourself.
Yeah, so it's funny that you asked that, Mitch, because every Wednesday I come out with a podcast episode, and my last recording was how to sell your home without a real estate agent.
Wow.
And we went, I think, like an hour and 40 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes explaining the ins and outs. And I probably said it in that episode, and somebody can hold me to the truth. Like I think maybe 15 times I said, that you don't need a real estate agent to do this. And the reason, and the book's right behind me here, there's 3 sections to it. There's the selling intelligence, the buying intelligence, and the investing intelligence. All of it's written from the perspective of being able to do it on your own. Why? I mean, why did we do that? Because we came to realize very, very early on that most people don't want to be sold. They don't want to be sold to. They also don't want to do things on their own. And so we figured, why don't we just become the guys and the gals that are teaching people how to do it, kind of knowing, like I'm talking about Canadian numbers, and you like in the States, it's like just 10x anything we say here, but only about 3% of Canadians actually try to sell their own home. So that means 97% of the marketplace for in the greater Toronto area, which is the city I'm in, of about 6.5 million people, 6.6 million people. Out of 100,000 sales last year, only 3,000 of them were ever done by somebody else, like for sale by owner. So why even focus on those people? Don't worry, they're going to sell on their own. Let them do that. Let them do that on their own. We focus all of our energy on the 97% of people that are going to use a service of a real estate agent. However, we want to educate them first. Why? Because an informed buyer, seller, or investor, or an informed, like, I don't care what industry you're in, an informed customer is a lot easier to work with, because majority of the ice is broken because they're already educated. They just need someone now to kind of hold their hand through the process. There's a big sign here in my office to the right of me that says removing friction. And the reason it's up there is to remind people that, like my team, that our job is to make it as easy as possible for someone to do business with us. That's it, period. I mean, there's another meaning for it for me personally, to remove all the friction between, the 6 inches between my ears to get to where, I want to go from where I am right now. But this really came from reminding our team that, hey, our job with our customers, our clients, is to just remove the nonsense. And what's the nonsense? Well, like, why do we always have to hold everything in, like, all the information to ourselves? Why not just give it away? That's how the book came about. The book came about, like, getting asked the same questions over and over again. Like, what does it cost to use a lawyer, real estate lawyer? How do you get financing? And so every time I answered it, I was like, okay, let me just document this so I don't have to continuously answer the same question. But then what formed out of it was, why don't I just help you also sell your own home? And if you want to give it a shot, no problem. I hope you remember the guy or the team that helped you through it. When you're thinking about buying, you'll use us. Or if you tried to sell your own home and it didn't work, hopefully you come back to the people that gave you all that information. And for anybody who's listening, especially if you're a real estate agent, I got some news for you. There's a thing called YouTube and Google. You can find out all these things. Anyone out there can find out how to do all this on their own. Why don't you be the person that they remember, that taught them?
Right.
That's exactly right. And it's so interesting, Jas, what you just said, and so liberating. I mean, you have lots of really great nuggets in there. But think about the millennials, think about Gen Z, right? Think about anyone that is going to buy that first home right now. That's what they're accustomed to. They will absolutely do their research first. They will go on YouTube. They will go on websites. They will research everything. But at the end of the day, they are just an informed consumer that is looking for an expert to actually guide them through the process. So look at how glorious it is in our industry right now in the 2020s that we have all these informed consumers that are just waiting for us as experts to be there to now remove the friction and show them the way. So
Yes.
you absolutely hit it.
And you know what happened, Laura? Like I think like here in Canada, anyways, it was probably, and I wasn't in the business. I've been in the real estate business for 16 years now. But I think it was like early to mid 90s when the MLS system came out online, and realtors were losing their lid because before that there was a booklet that came out every single day.
I remember. Yes.
Okay. That had all the listings, and a client could not see a home without calling a real estate agent. So then the internet came on and people were like, oh my God, all these clients are going to know that the homes are for sale. But it's so much nicer when a client calls me and says, Jas, I saw 123 Main Street, 124 Main Street, and 125 Main Street online. I love those. Let's go take a look at them. Cut my job in like by 70%. I don't have to do any of the searching, right? So, I mean, I think we just kind of got it twisted. I think it's fear, actually. Before I kind of dive into saying that we got it twisted, I think it's just fear of not being able to be the gatekeeper of information. Right. And it's like, well, if I give away everything, they're not going to use me. Mitch, you use the example of the mechanic. I talk about that a lot, that if I was on the highway and I needed to change a spark plug, my car shut down, I'm going to probably just call the dealership and say, look, there's a car on the road. Here it is. Pick it up. Send me a new one. Like, that's probably how I kind of roll. However, if I was actually going to fix it, I'm still going to get the mechanic who probably taught me how to fix it. I'm never going to do it myself, is what I'm trying to kind of articulate. That I'm never going to do it on my own. I'm going to call the guy or the gal that taught me or was in front of me with content consistently. That's the person that I'm going to call on. Or it's also going to be the person that I introduce my friends and family to when I'm at a cocktail party, when I'm at a dinner party, and someone's like, I got to take my car to a mechanic. I don't know where to take them. Oh, you should take them to Steven, the mechanic, because you should see his YouTube videos, or you should see his blog, or whatever it is, right? His Instagram profile. I'm going to show them. And that's what starts to happen.
Well, even in my marketplace, I mean, there's a perfect example today or yesterday. I learned about how important a realtor is, because just down the road, our neighbor's selling 5 acres. It's an older home that needs, some fix ups, but they put it on the market, I think 3 months ago on their own for 140. And around here, acreages don't last long, but it sat on it for like 2 or 3 months. They listed it within 2 weeks. They had a offer pending for 160.
Right.
And it's like, what were they doing? That's why you hire a professional. They got 20 more than they're asking in a couple of weeks versus, sitting on it for 3 months and doing nothing with it.
Definitely. I mean, with like clients, I think they think that they're going to be saving money by doing it on their own, which in my opinion is just not true, because from a realtor's perspective, and I'm not saying this is because I'm a realtor, I'm the guy who's teaching people how to do it on their own. But the truth of the matter is that realtors are paid on performance, right? Just like mortgage brokers, you're only going to get paid if the house sells. You're only actually not even when it sells, when it actually closes. And the same thing for a mortgage broker, when the money actually gets funded. And that's taken off the value of the home or the lot or the 5 acres, which is based on other comparables of sellers who actually paid real estate commission. So it just takes more time. So if you're a real estate agent or a mortgage broker listening to this right now, I think what you need to come to understand is that most people just don't have the education. You just got to take the time to educate the public, because most people in the public would say, well, you guys are making millions upon millions of dollars. Look at you with all the fancy suits and the nice Mercedes and the BMWs. But when you actually educate someone and say, look, this is, yes, I sold this many homes, but this is what I had to pay for expenses. And there's these people called the CRA or the IRA. Like there's a lot of expenses associated, but you can't blame the customer for not knowing that. It's our fault as professionals because we're not taking the time to continuously educate it. And it's not, and I want to emphasize the word continuously, because you have to do that over and over and over again.
That's correct. Hey, Jas, I do want to go backwards. I want to hear the story. How did you get into real estate?
How did I get into real estate? So I've always been in sales and service, as you mentioned. It's been now, coming up to year 26. And I was always interested in investing into real estate. My parents came to Canada from India in 1974. My father was a taxi driver his whole life. My mother was a factory worker her whole life. And one of the ways that there's three boys, I'm the youngest of three boys, and we didn't have a lot, but we didn't have nothing, at the same time. Like we got to play sports, and we were just, luckily all three of us picked soccer, which is not a very expensive sport to play. And so they got us into as many things as they possibly could, but household income probably was like $60,000, and that never really moved much. How were they able to afford some stuff though? Was because my mom always, God bless my mom, for a grade 4 education, but understood one concept, that buy a home and rent it out. Now, where she started was buy a duplex and rent out the basement. Now, I mean, we were renting the basement maybe for like $500 to $600 on the highest end, maybe like $750 a month. But that helped with the groceries. That helped with just shoes, like maybe a better pair of shoes for us, right? It offsets some of our expenses. And so I also then saw some of my uncles actually purchase more than just their principal residence and rent it out. They bought income properties. So as a 17, 18-year-old, I kind of understood the concept, and it made sense to me. But I was always, as I mentioned, in sales. And so I was selling cars for about 3 years. And I bumped into, in a 30-day period, I sold 4 cars to all real estate agents. And doing the credit application, I saw what they made. English for 2 of them was probably their 4th language. Amazing guys. I love them. I still speak to those 2 2 of the 4 agents on a regular basis. But I said, you know what? I've been doing sales for a while. I think I can get the hang of this, and I'm seeing the money that they're making. And where in the car business, there is somewhat of a ceiling anyways, where the dealership that I was at. And so I decided to take the jump, and best thing I ever did. I joined a gentleman who had a much smaller real estate company. In fact, it was him and his sister at the time, but he had dreams of growing it out. I joined him at that time, and he said to me, look, man, for 2 years, you're going to do all the grunt work that I don't like to do. I don't want to go, right? And I was like, his name was Simon. He's passed on now, but he mentioned that you're going to do all the grunt work that I don't like to do. And I said to him, look, buddy, man, I'll clean your toilets. Just teach me. Teach me. I will do whatever you say, and I'll prove it to you over time. Don't take my word for it. But I'm a 12, 13, 14 hour a day kind of guy, even at the age of 23, because in car sales, which I was there for 3 years, so 20 to 23, in car sales, you have to be like, you're 12 hours a day. Sunday's your only day off. And so I said, I will show you, but as long as you just teach me the right way to do this. And for 2 years, he definitely, taught me everything he knew. Him and I were together for 13 years. He passed 3 years ago. But over time, I became partner, and now we're at a team of 41 real estate agents and 11 support staff.
Oh, wow. So it's the same company.
Same company. It's myself. We brought on a third partner at the time. So there was 3 of us. One of them passed away, and it's myself and my current partner, Simeon, or Simos. If anybody who ever watches my content, you'll see I say I'm the better looking partner. He's the Greek bald guy that's always with me.
Well, that's awesome that it started, like you said, just starting out as being the grunt work, and now you're the partner and in a much larger position.
Yeah, and so when he passed a few years ago, he was actually the face of the company in terms of he was the one who would do a lot of the talks at seminars. Myself and CMOS, we ran kind of the back end, all the operations. We would put Simon, who passed away, on stage. And so we were actually branded the Real Estate Center for 13 years. And then when he passed away, we needed to change things up and do it a little differently. People say kind of what you said, Mitch, like we've taken it definitely to a bigger stage. I just think it's a different stage. We're on a totally different path. We now brand it REC, kind of have an abbreviation to be kind of cool like the kids. And it's called REC, still means the same thing. It's Real Estate Center. And now we just produce a godly amount of content. I try to get to 20 to 23 pieces of content a day on all the platforms, which was by far the biggest game changer in our business. It's taken us to stages virtually and live that we never thought we would be at. Like, I'm speaking with Mitch and Laura, like that would never have happened 5 years ago. Like that just wasn't in our thought process. That's why, I'm screaming as loud as I possibly can to people, not only on my team, like to the whole industry, not just the real estate or mortgage industry, but the sales industry, because that's the industry that I owe everything to. Like, I love real estate. I love it, love it, love it. But I truly owe everything to the sales industry, because they took this boy that, still till this day has a tough time spelling stuff, has a tough time saying things. I can't put up these shelves behind me, but the one thing I can do is follow up. I right. have a lot of energy. I have a massive passion for sales. And so what I'm screaming to salespeople in this industry is produce content. Produce as much as you possibly can. There is never enough content that you're producing. So if you're at 100 pieces, go shoot for 200. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing one a day, God, I'm just happy that you're doing one a day. But wow, I can tell you, because I'm living it for the last year and a half specifically out of the 3 years, the amount of business that I'm getting just because we're producing content.
I was going to say, let's jump into that too, because you can't. We don't want to skip over what you just said.
Well, I apologize, Laura. I should have mentioned this, and if Mitch didn't, because I know Mitch and I have done something in the past. I go all over the place. I speak in tangents. So I like to listen.
No, you're good. You're good. You're great. You're perfect.
The one thing I wanted to say is that all three of us come from that same background. We're all, sales.
Yes,
so
we're all from sales.
Speaking to the audience, the important thing is, if you have children, sales is not the snake oil sales stuff that used to be. I think sales is a key to anyone's success in life. Is the lessons you can learn in sales, whether you like it or not, and move on with it. Is
well, key. I think and people say, well, I've never been in sales. No, you were selling since the day you came
every day,
because you were selling for milk. Like, you just wanted milk at some point, right? Like, as a baby. Now, for some people, somewhere, someone said you shouldn't ask for things. Right. Someone said that no means no. Like, right. and they stopped the process. And like, I have a 7 and a 5-year-old, and I tell my team all the time, like, my 5-year-old is one of the best negotiators, because he's now at a point where he's not. Like, when they were 3, their negotiation tactics were just throwing tantrums, right? Like, that's not like his is like, he knows, like, okay, I'm going to start off, because I know dad's not going to let me watch TV for another 10 minutes. So he's going to start off with 15. He starts high. He knows that. And and it's just a beautiful thing for me to watch. But to your point, Mitch, we're always selling. If you're a leader, like, you might not be the salesperson in your organization, but don't get it like twisted for a second. You're selling your dream. You're selling your vision. You're selling what you want to be done for the end of the day, the month, the quarter, the year. You're always, always selling. And I agree with you, Mitch, when you say that there's a negative connotation to the word. And I think as salespeople, you hear it a lot. I'm not a salesperson, I'm an advisor. I'm not a salesperson, I'm a consultant. At the end of the day, I think you're trying to hide something. Be proud that you're a salesperson. Say, no, I'm not an advisor. I am a real estate salesperson. I am a furniture salesperson. Why? Because nothing in this market that we live in would ever have changed hands without a salesperson.
That's right.
Right.
That's what keeps the economy going, right? Absolutely. All right. So I want to know what happened 18 months ago that made you say, we're going to start producing this content. And then once that ripple started happening and you said, okay, we're going all in, we're approaching it from every angle. Did you see one type of social media or one platform kind of be better than another? Do you recommend people kind of be everywhere? Should they focus in? What's your advice to everyone out there?
So great questions, Laura. So I started producing content 2.5 years ago. What made me do? Yeah. So what made me produce content 2.5 years ago was based on experience that I had from having a national syndicated radio show here in Canada about 8 years ago. We started that 8 years ago. We had that for about 5 years or so. And then we decided to cancel because it just cost us so much money. It cost us close to $250,000 a year to have this weekly radio show. But what it didn't get us a lot of lead. Like, it didn't bring in the leads like of somebody saying, can I buy a house? Okay. It did, but not at the rate it probably should have, or what most people expect it to. But what it did for us was get our feet in the door with developers. And in Toronto, for us, that's huge, because I think we're number 2 or number 3 in the world in terms of new construction, the amount of cranes that are going up. Okay. And so that's huge because it got our foot in the door with those developers who gave us access to their projects, first access, which we could then sell to our clients. And then my partner passes away, and a year before he passed away, we stopped the radio show. And then there was a gaping hole. It was a gaping hole. I came across a Gary Vee video that he mentioned the word podcast. I was like, what the heck is a podcast? I've never heard of this word. I've heard of video. I've heard of webcasts, but what is a podcast? Never heard of it. And this was exactly, I would say, 2.5 years ago. And so I Googled the word. I'm like, wow, you speak into a mic. You don't need to do video, which I was definitely not in the mood to do, and just even comfortable. And oh wow, it's free. Like, it's practically free. Like, for $15, you can be on Anchor or Libsyn or whatever it is, right? And you could distribute it to the world. Oh, and it could be like, it's yours. You don't need NBC, ABC, Netflix. You don't need anybody. Nobody. Right. So coming from the radio, like, it was segments. We had an hour, but it was cut into like 12-minute segments. And if like the F word slipped out or something, you have to cut and do it all. Like, you'd get into a lot of trouble with the Broadcasting Commission and all that stuff. And then there was ads, and they controlled what you were able to say. And so I turned on the mic. I figured to myself, okay, I'm not going to do this video thing. No, being in sales my whole life, being on the phone, not that everyone said you have the sexiest, most sultry voice in the world, but no one on the flip side said you have like the worst voice in the world. So I was like, I think I can do this. I think I can handle this. Started out with the podcast, and then a year and a half. So to your point, Laura, is why I wanted to just correct you that content started 2.5 years ago. A year and a half ago is when I said I'm going all in with this. All in meaning I'm bringing everything in-house. So I now have a creative director, 3 videographers / editors, 2 animators, and a copywriter. So I legit took the Gary Vee model, met him, did a podcast with him, spent some time with his team, and I just imitated his strategy around producing content. and now I'm in assimilation mode. I then went into assimilation mode, and now I'm in innovation. Now I'm trying my own stuff.
Well,
I'm,
let's talk about Gary Vee. So
sure.
you're a podcast host. You get this dream interview. How did that happen?
All sales, follow up. It took me a year and a half to get Gary. Took me a year to get Grant Cardone. It took me probably about 8-9 months to get someone that I'm getting closer and closer to on a regular basis. Patrick Bet David. I mean, Ryan Serhan on the flip side, before he started all this media that he's doing. I actually just made a phone call. Like, I know he's a real estate agent, so I knew somebody had to pick up his phone. Like, he has to sell houses. So I just called the office, and my team was like, what do you mean? I was like, guys, he's a real estate agent. If there's a listing appointment, he needs to know about it. So I just picked up the phone and I called and I said, hi, may I speak to Ryan? They're like, sorry, what is this about? I told them. They're like, yeah, no problem. Come on over. So we flew to New York and did an episode with him. And now I've kind of done all the $1 million listing kind of crew except Frederick. But to answer your question, Mitch, it was complete follow-up, man. Gary's team either didn't reply back to me, which probably happened the most, then said no a couple of times. But I was like, no forever, or just no right now?
Well, that reminds me of my first interactions with Steve Sims. He's like, who are you? And no. And then eventually, that I'm friends with the guy now, and it's like, he was like, what are you doing? So yeah, maybe I will, help out, and he did one of my virtual events, and he was like, no way. And then eventually he was like, okay, let's do it. I'm intrigued. Let's make it happen. So
it's
exactly.
It's always
never
the same
taking
thing.
No.
It's now, like, unless they tell me to like F off and don't ever call me, you're harassing me. That's like right across the board. That's, for me, that's like if I'm ordering from McDonald's and I'm asking for just a special order and they say no, I'm gonna say like no right now or no in the next 5 minutes. And if they say, or if it's a client that's going to be investing $10 million out of his portfolio, it's the same thing. It's always for me, it comes down to follow up. To you, Laura, when you asked in terms of was there any specific social media, for me, it was podcasting.
Okay.
Because the game changed for me in a year and a half. Now I went back, I did 17 episodes. I think were all audio, 15 to 17 episodes. Right. Then I got the Ryan Serhan one, and then the team was like, you got to put this on camera. I was like, ugh. The one thing I didn't really want to do. Okay, I'll make everyone happy. We'll do it camera. My co-host is a massive $1 million listing fan. So she's like, we got to get this on tape. I was like, no problem. Then I started to fall in love with the camera. And now there's four of them around me, believe it or not. And the reason that is, though, because a year and a half when I decided I'm going to go all in, is when you can go macro with a piece of content, meaning a conversation that us three are having right now that is being recorded through video. If you decide to not put out the video and use audio, that's a different story. But you have the recording now. You have this video being recorded. What you can do out of it is minimum. And I have a guide that I put, a 34-page guide. No cost for it or anything. I don't sell it. I have nothing to sell in that sense, unless you're thinking about investing in real estate. That's the only thing. Where you should be able to get 20 to 23 pieces of content out of the 40-minute, 60-minute conversation we're having. So for me, it was podcasting. To answer your question fully, Laura, like if someone's listening, what advice I have, I think I would tell you to do what comes most naturally to you. Meaning, if video, like for me, I wasn't comfortable, even if audio you're not comfortable with, but if you're a great writer, I think you should just start writing. Here's the nice thing with writing, that one day if you ever want to turn that into a podcast, well, you got a script. You're actually going to be better off than I am, and probably you too, because you guys are not, it doesn't look like you're reading anything. You're just talking, having a conversation. But if somebody doesn't want to do a podcast, doesn't want to do video yet, but you're comfortable with writing, I would say write. If you're comfortable taking pictures, like I always reference the gentleman from Humans of New York. I don't know his name. I'm gonna check into that. But all he did is went around New York and took pictures of regular people, like just taking pictures of regular people. And now I think he's worth like 10, 15, 20 million dollars. Turned it into a book. Now they're turning it into some type of animation, and he's written books about him taking pictures of humans in New York. Like it just goes all over the place, right? So I think a platform, all of them work. They're all good. Every single one of them. TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Libsyn, iPhone, iTunes, all of them are good. What are you going to do that you're most comfortable with, though? And what are you going to do that you're consistently going to get up in the morning and not sweat over? It's just going to be natural to you. That's where I would start. For me, what's worked well, though, is being everywhere. Or at least let me rephrase that. Being as in many places as I possibly can. Because I don't know if Mitch is going to resonate with my message on Facebook on a Thursday afternoon, or is he gonna resonate with one of my images on Instagram on Friday morning. I also don't know if Laura's going to resonate with one of my captions that I just wrote on LinkedIn, or is she going to resonate maybe with one of my animations because she's nostalgic around cartoons like I am. I have a 7 and a 5-year-old. It's always on in my house, but I also love cartoons. And you might just be like, that is a great cartoon. And it might just resonate. So for me, I'm just going to kind of plant seeds everywhere. I kind of, back home in India, we're farmers. That's what we do in India. So maybe I just kind of, it's the first time I've actually even articulated it like this, but I think I'm just planting seeds everywhere and seeing what's going to grow.
Well, that's being a great salesperson too. That's what we do, right? We have to plant seeds for the harvest that you can't even see the growth yet. You're just planting away. Absolutely.
Love it. So tell me this, how nervous were you rolling into Gary Vee's office?
Yeah. So I had my business partner with me, as well as my co-host. At that time, she really wasn't co-hosting. She was playing the role which she is the VP of REC Canada. And so we had some drinks the night before. We kind of went around New York. It was the first time that us three went to New York together. So we experienced it, and then it's funny because it was set, I think, for 10 a.m. They text me. Yeah, they sent me a text the night before, and I was like, God, don't tell me you're moving this like days. I'm only here for 3 days. We flew here. They're like, can you do 1 p.m.? And I was like, yeah, no problem. But I was hoping that it was going to be first thing in the morning because I could just kind of get it over with, talking about kind of nervousness. Right. I was like, let me just get this over with now, right? But I gotta say, the second I walked into his office, his team was just so welcoming. He's a beast of a guy in terms of how busy he is. Like, it's every minute of his day. So post podcast, I was there for another like 5-6 hours in his office, and he's just like bouncing around, and people are just yelling at him, Gary, room this, Gary, room this, Gary, room this. Like, he doesn't even know where he's supposed to be half the time. But the second I got into his office, I kind of just I took a breather. I remember telling myself, just breathe, bro. Like, he puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like everyone else. He breathes the same air as you do. And I said, hey, Gary, what's up? And we started the podcast, and it went by really quickly. I don't know. I think the viewers and listeners would have to tell me how I did. I'll leave that up to them. But I had a blast doing it, and it was nice being with my VP and my business partner because they got to enjoy that with me.
That's awesome. A very cool experience that you'll always be able to hold on to and cherish.
Yeah, and I always like to tell people, because a lot of people always ask me about Gary and Grant and all the bigger names that I got. But I don't know who this is going to resonate with out of the listeners, but I'm hoping it resonates with one person. Because you might be saying, oh, well, Jas got all these guests and all this, and he has this team. First of all, I never had a team. It was just myself. Second of all, my most listened to episodes, and more importantly, most engaged episodes, meaning of clients actually coming back to me and saying, Jas, we heard this episode and, now we're ready to do X, Y, and Z, are the ones that nobody knows of. Meaning, if I say to you, Sue Murphy, you don't know who she is, but she went from 0 to 11 properties in 2.5 years. Now, I have clients who've done 10 properties in a year, right? But that episode, someone watched it, and now thousands have, but they say, wow, I see myself in Sue.
Yeah, that's right.
99% of people cannot resonate with a Gary Vee because he makes, his revenues are 300, $200 million, has a 1,500 team person, 1,500 team members. And so it's hard to resonate with them, right? It's too big. It's too far-fetched. But if you're listening, you don't need those big names. I want you to just produce content, speak to the world, let people hear your message. And if it's the same message, like I have real estate agents in my office, well, Jas, you do this podcast, you're always talking about real estate and investing. Yeah, but there's 6.6 million people, and I can tell you 90% of them don't resonate with me. They don't like the fact that I'm an Indian guy who waves his hands all day long and wears a hoodie or a t-shirt. They're not going to resonate with me. Yes, we're both saying that a lawyer costs $1,500, but they might hear it differently when you say it. A. B, we as humans need to hear the same messaging over and over again anyways, because the brain can only compute like 10 to 13% the first time you hear something. So I don't care how many podcasts there are. You still should shoot podcasts. You should still shoot content. You have to, because it is the gateway into so much more that you're probably wanting in your life.
Yeah, totally agree. And I actually am curious about that, going back to was it Sue Murphy? So I'm just curious, what are some of the things that you have learned from doing the podcast? I'm curious of what lessons you have learned.
That's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that, Laura. Well, first and foremost, I've learned a lot about myself.
Right.
And what that is that the more that you know, the more that you know that you don't know. And so what I'm trying to say when I say that is that I have so much to learn about myself because I'm pushing the boundaries every single time. Like I still get butterflies. This is probably in 2 years, at least my, video number 5,000 and probably more. Like, and I'm not exaggerating, but I still get the butterflies the second these guys, my team told me, yeah, Jas, Mitch and Laura are ready for you. I like that because the second that stops for me, I'm going to stop doing this because it's not fun for me anymore. So I need that. I didn't like when I couldn't speak and my hands were sweaty and I'm going to want to throw up. I didn't like that because that's on the other extreme, but I like the little butterflies in my stomach. It makes it
the excitement.
It's that excitement. I think that's the word for it, right? I think I'm more excited than anything else. So I learned that about myself. I've also learned how many people are just fearful. They were just fearful at the start. Like everyone was scared till they did it. I'm not talking about content or just only content. From all my guests, I think the underlining theme in all the 146, 47 podcast episodes I've done from all the guests is that they were just scared till they did it. So if they were thinking about their first property, fearful until they did it. And then getting from their first to the second, same thing. If someone was starting a business, they were scared until they did it. And so that is probably what I've come to learn because, we all live in our own box, in our own world, and you think it's just you. And over time through my podcast now, from my guests, I've learned that, wow, that fearful feeling is nice actually once you learn how to dance with it. Once you learn that if you just take the next step, and you can't see it right above my head, there's a massive sign above my head that says ready, fire, aim, instead of ready, aim, fire, because so many of us get stuck in paralysis by analysis, right? And we never actually pull the trigger. So the sign behind me is to remind everyone, look, pull the trigger. That doesn't mean you don't aim, but you aim after pulling the trigger because then you can readjust along the way. If you're trying to hit a target by pulling the trigger as many times as you possibly can, you'll know if you're too far left, too far right, too high, or too low.
Right.
But if you never pull it and you never shoot, you'll never know.
And all you'll have is regret.
I think so. I think, yes, I think you're definitely bang on with that. And that's scary for me anyways. Like,
Me too.
I'm 39, turning 40 at the end of this year. And, I got another, life and a half of me left right now. And I want to give it everything I have. And I just want to know I didn't leave anything out on the table. And that's usually me. I was talking with a team member yesterday, and my question for you, Jas, like, how do you sleep at home? I go, look, I can probably be here with you till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and we're working as long as I'm bouncing around. But the second I go home and my head hits a pillow, and that might be on the couch, that could be on a chair. If my head hits the pillow, I'm out like a light. Why? Because I'm giving everything. Like, if I had another podcast, I think 10, 11 Zooms for the rest of the day. This energy is going to be the same. There is no difference. This is not made up for your podcast. This is exactly how I roll every day. But at the end of the day, I'm tired. I'm burnt out because, I got 3 team members waiting outside the hall right now because they're probably have some fires of clients, or something's happening that I gotta shift questions. What do you think, Jas? What do you think, Jas? And as you're answering that takes a lot of bandwidth, right? And so I want that to be my life, though. I want that to be at the end of my life. I gave it everything I had. Like, take me now. I'm ready to go.
The one question that people always used to ask me that drove me crazy when I've been in sales my whole life is, be like, man, I'm exhausted. Today was rough. And they'll be like, you called people on the phone. How tiring can that be? I'm like, you don't understand that there's more. You put out more in mental thought and capacity, and when you're dealing with problems than just lifting things.
Yes.
1,000%. Like, I record. Like, it's funny, right? We did a lot of Zooms before the lockdown, but now obviously it's all we're doing, and there's not a lot of people that would say that now because it's all recorded. Like, now you're like,
yeah.
Oh, whoa, Jas, like, that was how many Zooms today? Like 26 of them you did? And it didn't seem like you dropped energy. I was like, yeah, because I'm so grateful for somebody wanting to hear me. Like, I like the sound of my own voice. I think everybody can tell that by now, like anybody who's listening. But at the end of the day, like, that 26 clients or 10 clients, whatever that day might have been, like, they actually wanted to hear me as well. I'm so grateful for it that I will not give them less of me. I will make sure that the energy, they might not like what they hear. It might not resonate with them that they should think about investing into this or whatever it is, but they will not be able to get off that phone with me and say his energy wasn't there or out energize me either. That's something like on a phone call, on a podcast. I want to give a little bit more than everyone else because I want to try to change someone's mood. And I'm a big believer that energy has the ability of doing that. And that's kind of what I'm known for now.
Well, I know that Laura and I could chat with you all day because, I like your voice too. So
thank you, Mitch.
I got one last question for you before we, sign off here. So you're a podcaster. You've been doing it for a while now, 147 episodes, whatever it is. So who's your favorite, podcasters that you listen to when you have the free time?
Well, beside Mitch and Laura, now that I've been hosted by you guys, and that was that was just amazing. I would be lying if I didn't see Gary Vee because he was the first podcast I ever heard. And I gotta say though, right now, and T-minus 90 days for the last 90 days, probably about 4 months, call it 120 days, has been Patrick Bet David. Patrick Bet David is not a name that a lot of people know. His podcast is called The Bet David Show. Don't quote me. Just Google Patrick Bet David. I had the opportunity to host him. And just before that is kind of when I started to, just after that is when I really started to dive into his content. He has he runs an insurance company of, I think, like 18,000 insurance advisors or something. It's massive, out of Texas, but just moved to Florida a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. And his there's something about his style that really resonates with me. And he's an intelligent, very intelligent, well-rounded person. And he's the thing with Gary and a Grant, for example, they could rub you the wrong way if you don't do more of a digital deep dive on them. Very few people on first impression like either one of them. Most people, you got to see them the 8th or the 9th time. With Patrick, anybody who's seen him for the first time, it's like, oh, there's something about this guy. Okay. Because he's not screaming in your face. Not to say that Grant and Gary are doing that all the time or anything, but with his style just really resonated with me. I definitely think Gary probably was the most underrated entrepreneur 5 years ago. He's not now. He's rated. Like, people know him. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a hidden guy. I truly believe Patrick Bet-David is the most underrated entrepreneur in North America. Like that, like I'm gonna go that far. He's a brilliant guy, and I like his style. I like it, and you guys will love his leadership style. He talks about his leaderships, and there's a lot of content around his team talking about him. And I think you'll enjoy him. Definitely.
Yeah, it's our next guest is actually an insurance agent from Texas, also, Mr. Johnny Quinn, former bobsledder, an Olympic athlete. So we're excited for that.
Look, reach out to Patrick's team. He finished a book his book, this one right here, Your Next 5 Moves, Amazon bestseller, written, translated into like 47 different languages already. He's going around doing podcasts, so you guys should reach out to him and his team.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, sure. Jas, how can people learn more about you, follow you, and everything else?
I appreciate that, Laura. My cup is full. I'm ready to give to a lot of people right now. It's overflowing. I just hope I gave you guys some value first and foremost. And
absolutely.
To anybody that's listening, I think, really the easiest place is probably my website. You can kind of do a deep dive there, find out my other socials, decide how you want to consume me, if you want to consume me. It's jastakhar.ca, jastakhar.ca.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and I appreciate all your information and nuggets. And I'm sure the audience is going to enjoy this episode for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Whatever I can do for you, please let me know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jas.
Guys. Thank you.